remember that I am an advocate for Byron and that I should always speak up for him and never be ashamed or afraid to do that. And you spoke life into my life. And I have a lot of people that say to me, you know, well, he made a mistake, he made a bad choice, he made a bad decision. That's on him. You just need to let it go. But a mother can't do that. A mother can't do that. And so I just appreciate you more than I can even say, because some days I would just be like, oh my God, this is too much. I don't even know what to say. It feels like whatever I'm saying is falling on deaf ears. And out of the blue, you would inbox me or you would comment, don't stop, don't quit. You have to keep going. And I want to publicly let you know how much that means. It really does. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, let me first say thank you for your resilience and thank you for your openness and definitely the opportunity to connect with you as well. I would share with you that if a mother is never gonna quit or give up, then we shouldn't either. And I would tell you, being an only child, that sometimes we overpay in our circumstance. We give the system too much credit, and we end up giving it more than what our mistakes are. You know, no discount to any victim, but when we know better, we do better. And I'll tell you that we are sometimes harder on ourselves because of those choices and those decisions. And it makes it much harder to restore hope and restore ourselves because, what, how we victimize ourselves. So that being said, it's people like yourself who believes in we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater that gives us an opportunity to restore ourselves. So we can't thank you enough for being an advocate for all of the young men and women who are, in the system and in a lot of these situations are serving, you know, out, just outlandish type sentences. We're not asking for anything other than mercy, leniency, and what people want for themselves. But our system was not built off rehabilitation. It was built as a punitive system. So when people would make their careers off being tough on crime, in reality, the system itself is selling you on the concept that it's a rehabilitation mechanism to it. And we've lost track of being rehabilitated, and we've been sent to prison as punishment, not to be punished. And so our judicial system that's on the front end to keep their face, they are selling that fear that if we don't give you 50 years, then we're not acting, in the public best interest. But whose best interest is it in if anybody has to serve 50 years? So we're finally getting to a shift where we're looking at people who understand now more that we have to work together on both ends, for awareness, prevention, education, and uh, restorative justice. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your effort because you're not going anywhere. So we may as well work with you.
That's right. Thank you.
That's right.
So why don't you, for some of the other young people who may be listening right now, or those other mothers who may be listening, why don't you share a little bit of your experience, um, how you ended up in prison, and the decision you made to turn your life around?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my, you know, my, influence. It's all influence. Peer pressure. You know, I was the only child, and so my mother worked a lot, and she trusted that I was gonna be the big boy I said I was. And being a big boy, I mean, I went and looked for bigger boys to play with and to be around. And more of my choice and decision was to fit in. And they weren't bad guys, but together we could come up with some pretty extracurricular type things. And they were not all favorable things. And we have a justice system that has um, zero tolerance for our choice in the decision. So because there's no relationships between the two or three parties, when we run into law enforcement to address the issue, we go to jail. We get a charge. And that starts at a young age. And so before we have an opportunity, we've already created this rap sheet. So now to survive in the criminal justice system, you have to make your lifestyle and your choices match that character. So even if you made a immature decision to, get in trouble now, but you can't be just immature and childish going to prison or jail. Now you got to be what? You got to be a killer. You got to be violent, because that's the how the system operates. Now you're gonna go for a misdemeanor, but you're gonna be in the cell with somebody that had 3 felonies, and so forth and so on. It continues to escalate from there. So there's no de-escalation between being a young person and coming in contact with the justice system in terms of the justice system in itself having community outreach, so we know what how to restore ourselves, but we're geared toward survival. And now you're dealing with egos and peer pressure. So it's just a bad situation that get worse. So um, getting in trouble was like a somewhat of a badge of honor. It was like who could be most mischievous. And the only ones that are getting punished is those who are actually getting caught and those who are targeted. So I ended up getting real edgy as a young person, and of course, being out, it was okay to drink and you know use um, some of the little things we thought was fun because everybody drank and got high and did things like that. So it was like casual stuff. And again, those were still some of the gateway things that led to some of the other decisions. So I ended up using marijuana at a young age, and I got introduced to crack cocaine, um, and I started getting high as a teenager. And so I ended up, using drugs for a few years in the street, and then from there, I went to rehab, and I got out of rehab, and I started um, hustling in the streets. And so I was indicted at a real young age, and when I was sent to federal prison, and when I realized that I got to federal prison, you know, that where I was wasn't a true reflection of who I was, simply because I was serving a long sentence, and I'm trying to figure. At first you start out, you make yourself be this character that you were when you was making those choices, because you're going to end up in trouble, jail, or prison, or whatever. But you don't know how long a year really is, because you didn't have that value of spending the year in vacation, summer camps, and all those type things that most affluent communities are afforded. So you don't know what to do with your time. So you only know to leave out your house, and whatever y'all see is what you do. So by the time I started, I was in prison, and I started, looking around at the process. I'm like, man, everybody in here look like me. You know, everybody in here made decisions similar to what I did. And then I started, looking at how we were being, treated within the system, and I realized that, you know, you got guys 40 years old that's taking a GED class. You got guys that, are regular people that's in here that probably were not bad people, made some difficult decisions, but man, 30 years, life sentences. And, after the first year, I started looking like, a year's a lot longer in jail and prison than you think of. And I'm like, well, now that I'm here, I need to realize how I ended up making the choice decision that led me here. So part of my reflection and introspection led me to realize that I might not have much of a chance to make any other choice and decision based on my influence. Um, and so I started to think about how many other people possibly knew that I would end up in this situation, since so many people look like us, and why we didn't know that. Why we, for the first time, you know, looking at the criminal justice system when we're in here.
Right.
And I never forget, after I realized the sentence I was serving, that 1 year was going to be another whole year I had to do the same way. Then I'm like, it's no end to these years because I'm serving 20 some years sentence. So I'm like, man, how do you do that kind of time? You really can't. So I started to feel like, okay, then if I do serve this sentence and I get out and one more thing go wrong, I'll spend all my entire life in prison. I mean, what's worse, spending your entire life in prison? And I'm like, I need to start not just worrying about this sentence, but the next one. Because if all I did was what I done, and I'm in prison serving this type of sentence, I'm possibly gonna spend the rest of my life in prison. So that led me to want to be more proactive about what my influences were. And then I started to fear that I would die in prison because serving that amount of time, now you're starting to realize that it's not restorative justice. We ain't here killing one another. We're dying in here. We're not, nobody's checking for us to make sure we're okay in here.
Yeah.
And so that fear made me want to connect with other inspirational people who I felt had endured these circumstances. And that's what led me to face my fears. I thought about Dr. King and I was like, well, I knew he was in jail and I knew he was an inspiration. Let me see what led him to even face death, for his cause. And then I found some of his books, and I didn't even know he was an author. And so I ended up reading 5 of his books. And I was like, gee, here's a guy who was doing all of the right things, for other people that still ended up in jail. Then I realized that a lot of other black leaders were in jail. Then I realized about the civil rights movement. Then I'm starting to connect with these people. I'm like, man, that was set up before we even started out here. And that's when I really, I became bitter first. The Marcus Garvey, the Malcolm X type things, where they was out here trying to confront the criminal justice system, and they lost their lives.
Right.
So that led me to say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to make it out of prison. So let me go and write the book that I wrote, Finding Me, to help other people who may not be in this situation see what I'm seeing now, so to prevent them from even coming. And that was a really eye opener for me, because then I realized what my own shortcomings were. And then I realized that, if I wanted to do have freedom like other people had on the street, I was going to have to do like they do, get up, go to work every day and apply yourself. And, I didn't realize that, when you're in prison, you think getting out of prison solve all your problems, because you're in there, that's the worst problem. If I get you get out, that there's not a lot of empathy and sympathy for you as well, because now people are saying that, look, I served in the military. So I was protecting freedom. So now I'm the law enforcement officer. So I got zero sympathy and empathy for somebody who, ended up going in the criminal justice system. And, now you have the problems that you had before you ever went the first time, times 10 on top of you again. And now you got to try to be perfect to not spend the rest of your life in prison. And so those are some of the things that have influenced my life. And, we're at a different place in time now where people realize and starting to understand that, it's not so clear cut as in, who get justice and who doesn't.
That's right.
So it's still being defined every day. But for me, I'm not the best example to use, because my choice in the decision was quite different than some of the other challenges that people face,
Yeah.
going throughout the justice system. So I mean that may not clearly define what my journey has been, but I want to leave room for people to understand and know that recidivism is real, it's high, you know, and you can't be perfect enough to avoid a system that's set up and geared to be monetized based off people being charged, convicted, sentenced, selling the media, the fear, the ad. It's a lot of wealth that's being generated on the back of people's shortcomings. So
That's
again,
right.
I won't take up all your time, but thank you.
No, I absolutely am enjoying everything you're saying because these are some of the things that I have been studying even more and researching and looking into because the prison system is a business. It's a money maker. It's a warehouse for human beings, and it just makes a lot of money. Let's just face it. And so I
Right.
was reading something the
Right.
other day about the amount of money that the prisons get for each prisoner. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, and then you have grown men walking around in there with their shoes held together with duct tape, or some of them are half barefoot, half naked, because the state only gives them clothes and shoes twice a year. Meanwhile, the state is making like $50,000 off of that person. And so, and it's
Right.
like you said, I was thinking also, I try to talk to young men because, or young people, not just young men, but once you get in the system, it's easier to get back in the system if you don't accept why you got in there in the first place and make some changes because people are looking for you. I used to tell my sons when they were younger, they're looking for people that look just like you to lock you up because you could be hanging out with some of you guys your same age that are a different color. And if the law gets involved, you're the one that's going to get in trouble first. And then the other person has to explain, oh, yeah, I know them, they're okay. But you're the first person that the cops zero in, even if it's a whole crowd of you. And it's just the way it is. And so we have to do what we can to help our young people to understand it's not a joke. There's nothing funny about being in
Right.
prison. I know a lot of the rap songs and a lot of music and a lot of street talk is like, like you somebody big, how many times you've been in prison. That's crazy. Like, why you want to intentionally keep giving up your freedom? Um, when you don't have to. And so that's one of the things that impressed me about you. And I watch you sometimes when I don't even comment or say anything to you. I'm observing some of the things that you are saying, some of the things that you're doing. And I want you to know, as a mother, that I'm very proud of you. And I encourage you
Thank you.
doing what you're doing. And you encourage me. And sometimes at my age, um, I just get exhausted. It's like doing this work is exhausting. And then just on a day when
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, it's not, it looks like what I'm doing is not even working or anything. And just out of the blue, you'll say to me, keep doing it. Tweet this, tweet
Yeah,
that,
we not.
connect with
Yeah,
that
we
person.
we not.
And I just want
No,
you to
no.
know that I appreciate that. I want you to talk to
Right.
our listeners about some of the books that you've written.
Right. Well, again, I'll share with you a little bit, and thank you again. We're not quitting. We in the ring with Mike Tyson. We've taken the lick. Now it's time to fight. So there is no, we have nowhere else to go. All we have is each other. There's no, like I said, nobody's coming for us. If we don't do this work, nobody else is gonna do it. So we're here, we're stuck together, whether we like each other, whether we like the work or not, is what we gotta do. And again, enjoy your life. Don't give it any more than what you've given it. Your son is trust me, it's a coping system. And I want to share that with you. That's kind of what we're gonna address with the film. The coping system. So there are things that we do to survive. There are things that help us get through being incarcerated every day. And so the less you can give it, the least you can give it, the better for us. And I say that because that was a very instrumental part of my life. And as much as it has not been socially acceptable to accept that, to talk about that, I know our killers haven't been caught. And I know some of the people like Kanye say with some of the people highest up have the lowest self-esteem. And there's a lot of things that just not in the media with people that have done things way worse than what we've done. But again, the system is built to house the weak, and it's influenced by the strong. So that being said, we don't need to give it no more than what it has already taken. So that being said, the book that I've written, again, my stories happen and then I happen to write about them. Love's Journey was an inspirational romance where, as a young black male, when you're incarcerated, you have to create, these characters that you recreate yourself out of. And that's how you cope. That's how you survive and live your life. So, you have all these, you imagine yourself living a certain lifestyle and, doing certain things and you visualize that for yourself. So Love's Journey, The Road Less Traveled, was more of an inspirational romance story where, most young people, we have to find a way to express ourselves. And in that book, what I was able to do is I wanted to say the best of myself, because when you're in the streets, people think you don't care. When you live a certain life, they don't think you want to be a good father. You don't want to be a good husband. You're not even a good person for the most part. So they throw everything away with that mug shot. They
Right.
thinking that, right. So that being said, so Love Journey was a way for me to go and to, use some of the things I wanted to share, about what my emotions were, what some of the experiences were, and what I hope to have created for myself. And so that was Love's Journey, the Road Less Traveled. The Finding Me was again, no, that was my story of retro. That's kind of what the rediscovery point of me, going back over my childhood experiences and what those influences was like that led me up to the point of being incarcerated, and then what I learned, about the civil rights movement and connecting with that energy, those leaders. Um, so I finished that one as well. And the new one, Wall Street Bond, the Urban Renaissance, is us bringing that together. The economic element of some of the choice and decision that influence our choices in our communities. And I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned about rap music and the commercialization our communities. We are just speaking what our experiences are, but that is a tool that they use against us.
Right.
So that's a bait and hook situation. And it makes us live out these characters that gets us out of character. And then they're just waiting on us. And then they use that example to show who we really are. But when you look at those war tactics, if you read Dr. King's work, he talk about guys having rims the size of their rims in the civil rights movement. I'm like, I had no idea that people were concerned about materialistic things in the 60s. And I'm like, oh gee, right? Two, Mandela's book. He talk about what it meant to see a guy having an automobile as a kid and they in the fields. So materialistic stuff, the commercialization of things have always been a part that we haven't taken advantage of to benefit ourselves, but we allow them to use it to denigrate ourselves. So that's one of the things that I stand with you, and I'm hoping, as we get more culturally inclined, that we'll find value in lifting one another up and not promoting the elimination of one another, regardless of us having differences, because they make money and they play house on us. The criminal justice system is playing house. They get a cut whether we live or die, whether we go to jail or not. The justice system has a way, they got lawyers on both sides. They got one getting paid to say you're innocent, they get one to get paid to prove you guilty.
That's right.
So there's no win situation. It has to be prevention
That's right.
by all of our means and methods. And in order to do that, we have to recreate, a lot of the economic value within ourselves as well. Finding, a connection with one another, and to do business with one another. And that don't exclude participating with us, but we have to create a different appetite for what they want to buy and sell in and out of our community. And right now, it's very popular to sell hip hop and rap beef, but we lose the best of us when we die or when we go to jail. That kills our creativity. That kills our ability to reproduce, you know. So we have to get rid of that. We have to see that part. And that's what kind of makes you, want to find a different reason to exist, once you learn that. But you don't learn that from watching TV, listening to music and those things at this point. Hopefully, we're coming to, looking at DMX and they're publicizing his trials and his tribulation, his struggles, and then the genius side of him as well. So we're learning we're falling in love with our struggle. And I think that's the beauty. Even when you talk about your son and when you're posting that, that is like, yeah, don't hide it. Don't be ashamed of it. Reach out. Let the whole world incorporate that struggle and that pain. That's your son. That's your baby. God forbid anybody's child being in that situation. That they're not gonna sit back and worry about what you think and how you feel. That's their baby. And you're gonna know that. You're gonna feel that. And that's the joy of having, these opportunities to share on social media and connect. Hey, it just I can appreciate it, because I can see the struggle and the things that my mother and my family. And hey, anytime I can share it, anytime I can connect with it, and get all of the mothers I have, because if we can get y'all in the forefront, the empathy and the sympathy and the good energy is gonna come. And then trust me, we may be bad boys, but we learn how to be good men and good models, with that tough love. So by you speaking up for your son, you're not trying to overlook what his choice and decisions were, but you want to be a part of the corrective phase as well. And who's not gonna want that for their own child?
Wow. I enjoy every time I interact with you. This is the first time I've actually been able to sit down and talk with you face to face.
Right.
But you really, really
Mhm.
encourage me and you are a blessing to me. Um, and this is one reason why I wanted to make sure that I invited you to this forum because I'm encouraged by what you're doing and I am encouraged by how you speak and how you illuminate some of the issues that are prevalent in our community because not talking about it is not helping. So obviously we need to talk
Right.
about it. And so I appreciate you doing that. And I also I read that one of your books, Finding Me, is
Mhm.
they're making plans to turn it into a motion picture. Is that right?
Yeah. That yeah, it's Finding Me was the subject matter, and we did the screenplay. There's no right way to do wrong, where we want to show that coping system that I mentioned and what it's like to go through the criminal justice system. And from that stage play, we're drafting a motion picture, which for a future. But in the mean, we may do a series with some of it so we can start getting the subject out. And that's all of us. That's this. That's what we're doing. We're making a movie right now. We're making it socially acceptable for people to do restorative justice. We're making it okay to be, rehabilitation. If you look on the commercial side of things too, corporations are starting to reach out and embrace urban communities and young black males. And, we're starting to see some reinvestments in our community in these efforts. So my story is just one of the million stories. But I'm more excited to be a part of everybody else's story, and that's the joy for me because now I'm restoring that part of me that I struggle with. Gives us a chance to say, hey, look, this is what I went through. And it's not to be ashamed of, it's to learn from that. And I think that was the biggest things that I wish I would have knew. I look at what your son's saying, what he posting, and I think about, the children, the brothers, the sisters, the mothers, the aunts, the uncles, and we need a film that we can sit down and everybody can identify with, to share what it was like to, to be a part of this on the street. But now I'm learning to read, I'm writing, some of the things that, we didn't, have the understanding of. And people write you off when they say, well, you knew right from wrong,
Yeah.
But I learned through going through the justice system that ignorance is an excuse. When you know better, you do better. And knowing better mean you have some experience of that. And too often we don't have things that share with people the authenticity of who we are as real people. They only get the glimpse of that character, that decision, and that's not a true picture. And 50 years or 30 years, those are long sentences, to without the proper rehabilitation and corrective measures to restore the best of somebody, and using the system as a tool, as a weapon, don't help anybody. And I think we just seen that with the Derek Chauvin trial. People for the first time, had it not been for that being on camera, they had no idea of what you can experience in an encounter where you don't even know someone. You have two people meeting up for the first time, and you 10 seconds, it could make a life or decision, life or death decision. Even the resistance could send him to prison for life. I mean, instead, he was killed.
Yeah.
And the assault and battery, it's just so many ways to end up in the justice system. And
That's
there's
right.
not a beginning measure to prevent us from ever being there. And I think we can all be more, you know, productive if we all start to work with those extremes in mind.
Yes.
And so my part of my film is an awareness, prevention, education type effort, and I'm hoping that product brings some type of reprieve, for the people who don't have no one to go to, nowhere to go with it, because there's not a lot of prevention, awareness, education. Everything is almost punitive, and at some point we got to stop beating each other up because of the choices and decisions that we make,
That's
and
right.
work together to try to bring some awareness, because you're a mother, that's your son. I mean, you're not, you don't, I mean, nothing compares to that. And I'm not going to ever stop saying that, because that's everything. You,
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying? And to take that lightly would almost be like, what else really matters?
Yeah.
And for the first time, we're starting to see the valuable parts of the system, and we're starting to partner up with people like yourself who has a reason
Yeah.
for restorative justice. Because at the
Right.
end of the
Right.
day, you have to bring your son home. That's going to be your baby. And
That's
you're
right.
going to be there for him so we can learn from you.
Yeah.
You lead us where we need to go. And
Thank
then again, kids tell me all the time, and I got two things that I like to share, that I deal with all the time. When I speak to young people, they want to know, how much did I get away with? You know, they, they're not the ones saying that I'm not interested in what you did. I'm listening to what you're doing, but I'm more interested in what you did. They are even impressed, with the commercialization of crime.
Yeah.
So that's not on me or your son. Follow me? That's on Hollywood. That's on the media
Right. Right.
conglomerates who sensationalize some of the choices and decisions that young people make. Two, when I speak to an organization, institution with older people, they so busy patting me on the back saying, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm saying to them, it already happened to me. I'm sharing this so you'll know it can happen to you. And I think we're finally, for the first time, getting where you're going to be the one who make the movie.
Okay.
And, we're going to be here for you all
I,
the way.
oh, thank you so much. I want to give you a hug, but
Well,
seriously,
you giving me a hug every time. Every time.
thank you
Yeah,
so
I'm here
much.
for
But
you.
seriously, you have been such a blessing to me, such an encouragement. And sometimes, like you say, you do, you kind of sit back and you look at the situation because especially with the amount of time that he was given. Like, and then I see situations, even like with today, and I hear that, with even those three guilty charges, he could still maybe do a maximum. He could get a maximum of 40, but he wouldn't do 40. And then I'm thinking about my son who's doing 50, and then nobody died. There was no, he didn't, it was an attempted murder. It was two assault charges, 25 years apiece. That's ridiculous to me. What kind of system allows that? Like, that's crazy. But we can't just write him off. And like you say, I've had people say to me, well, he's done, he's over with. And he has said to me, some of his so-called friends, his boys, um, that came up to me in court that day and say, if you need anything, let me know. And then I never heard from him again. And when I said something to him about it, and he was like, Mom, they just did that for show. They had no intention of being there. Because when you hear the 50 years, you just be like, he's done. I'm like, he's over with. I pretend he never even existed. So it has been challenging. And you do have people that say, I've actually had people that ask me, do I feel like a failure as a mother? Right behind it when he got that amount of time. Do I feel like I made a bad decisions as a mother? And I'm like, any mother with any heart at all does not want to see your child in the system. But at the same time, my son was an adult. And so he made choices. So he had to suffer the consequences. But I'm not going to abandon him because he made bad choices. That's just not what we do. And
Right.
so I appreciate
Right.
young men like you who say, Miss Green, I don't even know you. I don't know your son, but just the story itself inspires me. And so I'm going to help you to keep doing what you need to do. And that means so much to me, really.
Well, we want to share with you that we can't, even with the young man that was sentenced today, and you can't put your knee on four walls. So even they failed him.
Yeah.
And trust me, as big and bad as you want to be, we're responsible for the influence we all get. And the people really responsible for a lot of decisions that we make, they never held accountable.
Yeah.
So until we change what our influences are, we're not even holding those people who influence us accountable.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to accomplish now in that. I use this term to kind of not try to offend people. I like to say we just primitive when it comes to the justice system. Let's just say we just getting started so that we can get it right, and
Yes.
giving them a chance to come to the table to say, hey, look, and if you look, I shared a post where one of the judges who had sentenced a young man to 30 years, he quit the bench and became an advocate to eliminate the mandatory minimum
Yeah.
because his hands were tied into giving a person more than 10 years for a charge that he felt 10 years should have been the max.
Yeah.
So even, it has to be an effort from everybody,
Right.
and giving ourselves room for corrective measures. And so if your experiences is going to help us with the capacity to serve and to, be a beacon of light and advocate for change, and, not throw away things. We don't want to eliminate any victims because, people treat people the way they've been treated, and hurt people, and we all have influences that allow, that has some instrument in how we do things. So with that, we want to help them understand that there's other factors that put us in the situation that victimize them as well. And there's some vulnerabilities that came. So we can't be this eye for eye justice system when we don't have the empathy and sympathy at the table for prevention.
That's right.
Right now, fear and tough on crime have been political ploys.
Absolutely.
And we don't even mention rehabilitation no more. We
That's
don't even
correct.
mention restoration. When the last
Correct.
time have you heard of rehabilitation?
That's correct. And
and if
it's
you
like
was in a
I worked
situation
at a
before you,
yeah, I was doing what do you call it? I was in college and I was doing, I can't even think of the word I'm trying to use, but anyway, I did it, whatever it was, at a local detention center. And my major was social work. And so I would talk with some of the inmates and stuff like that. And so one day I had a conversation with the warden and I asked him, I said, I asked you a question. I said, do you feel like correctional facilities are to be used for rehabilitation or for punishment? And he didn't even bat an eye. He said, oh, absolutely punishment. I'm not interested in rehabilitating anybody. And I was like, wow. And so then when my son got the amount of time he got, he said to me, he said, do you realize that because of the amount of time I received, I'm not eligible for any program that the prison system offers. So it wouldn't even be a matter of if I could get out, you know, giving me skills to make me a better person, preparing me for, it's just you in here now, you just, we don't care what happens to you. And then little by little, you saw them cutting out programs, the college, the GEDs, cutting out all of the programs that could help people to be better. So then when they come out, they're not ready. Like, they don't know what to do with themselves.
well, let's talk for a minute about what happens while you're inside, because a lot of times people see the mug shot and the handcuffs and you're in the system and they don't know anything else until you to have a court date, or they don't have another thing until you release. But your life, like right now, Chevin is in the system, right? So now you got the mugshot process, the holding cell, transport. Now you have the changing of the clothes, the classification, the intake. There's so many things that goes on tirelessly that people don't know about because it's out of sight, it's out of mind, that affects your everyday existence. And that has an impact on you.
Yeah,
And we talking about the trial from us being out here, but there's tension within.
yeah,
There are things that people are dealing with every day when they're incarcerated.
that's right.
So what happens to people while you're incarcerated is as important. And you're not in there like time, like you don't exist. You have to find a way to exist while you're there. And
Right.
some of those things is riots, you
That's right.
know, is hunger strikes. People have medical issues. Look at COVID. You're trapped, and psychologically, if we think we're dealing with the National Guard out here in these small towns at these medical facilities, imagine being incarcerated where you don't have proper access to medical. And then now you can't even isolate. And then isolation is solitary confinement.
Yeah,
And it's identical to a person that's on death row. So here you are with the most minor fraction. Now we're caught with millions of people in a system that can't adequately allow them to protect themselves,
that's right.
and to rehabilitate themselves. So many issues that we can just walk away from when we're out here that they can't.
That's
And so
right.
I think if we can be geared up on restorative justice, it could help all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful again. You're just getting started.
Yes.
You haven't even spoke to all of the people that can benefit from your story, from your effort. And I pray you well with your much success. And I look forward to being a part of your journey, and your son, and all of the men that he's touched, all of the mothers and the women you're reaching out to. And it's a way of life for me. And I am, yeah, I'm thrilled. Again, I can't say enough to be a part of your show, the people that
Oh,
you're working with, and giving some reprieve to the mothers who have lost their kids, and the fear that comes with them being in there in that situation. And I'm hoping this translate into an experience for people who are within the justice system.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hoping they find a way to be a part of your show. You know,
Oh,
give them a
thank
chance to
you.
come and talk to you. Yeah, we gonna make that happen. You know, yeah, we have people that reach out all the time. They want to do good things and things. You know, everybody
Oh,
is
that's
not
so
lost
sweet.
on
Thank you.
punitive justice.
I would
Yeah, we're
love
not.
to do
Yeah,
that.
we're just
Yeah, I
getting
would love
started,
to.
man. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. Yeah, we're not. We're in it together. Yeah, we're just getting started. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you again.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get ready to let you go, but I really,
Well,
really appreciate you have made my day. Thank you so much. You've given me a lot of things
mutual,
to
mutual.
think about, a lot of things to smile about, a lot of things to be grateful for, um, a lot of things to look forward to. And I really, really appreciate that. And we're going to
Yeah.
definitely stay in touch. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, well, definitely. And people gonna be trying to get to your show. Bet, believe that. They just
Okay.
made your whole house, so they got one of your mother. They gonna make everybody come live in your house. How about that? So you're gonna be a mother to many.
Thank you. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. You're gonna make me
So
cry again.
yeah. Yeah. I tell your son we're expanding the house now. So yeah,
Okay,
we're
I'm
gonna
gonna
be
tell
knocking
him.
on your door to be part of your show and be part of our journey. Yeah, we
Thank
all in it
you.
together. Yeah, let
That's
him know
right.
that. So
That's
thank
right.
you.
All
Enjoy
right.
your
Well, thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Right.
We'll definitely be talking
Thank you
soon.
so much. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
We're gonna call this our little time here. We just
That's
connected.
right. That's
All right.
right. All right.
Good.
Enjoy the rest of your
All right.
evening.
See you.
All
You
righty.
too.
Bye
All
bye.
right.